Hello everyone, it's good to see you back. Today we'll be diving into another insane Arc Warlock build that's all about getting our abilities up and applying constant debuffs while we are down. If you've heard of the Stormtrance update, then you would know that Crown of Tempest has been going off crazy for players as of recently. With our build, not only are you going to make full use of Stormtrance and Crown, but it's also going to be devastating when you do it. So, like always, let's break it down. Let's start with the general aim and exotic of the build. Our plan is to expand our Stormtrance usage through Crown of Tempest equipped it, while also making full use of the many debuffs being applied to a singular and multiple targets at once. For this, we'll be using Crown of Tempest and deterministic chaos. Let's start with exotic armor, Crown of Tempest. With its exotic effect, conduction times, it states, Arc ability or Jolt Finder blows increase the recharge rate of your Arc abilities and extended duration of Stormtrance. Similar to Fallen Sunstar, the given exotic is easier to use and maintain on a larger scale with little effort needed from our abilities. With conduction times, you have 3 stacks you can activate, with the third stack giving you a 502.5% ability buff for all 3 abilities used. Now this lasts for 7 seconds and is actually quite powerful when you have a arc weapon or singular ability that can trigger its effects fast and efficiently. In many cases, I will be using Arc Soul and the Noxious Vetiver SMG with jolting feedback to not only get all my buffs going, but also kickstart a few additional mods that will expand Shock or Brilliance usage. Our second exotic is deterministic chaos with its exotic effect Vexadecimal, which states, as strong against barrier champions. While holding down the trigger, every 4th heavy metal projectile also weaken targets on impact. While I could have stuck with Thunderlord and went with a full arc build, I decided to equip deterministic instead for the additional weaken buff and ability to break barrier champions' shields. We will be using Arc Compounding mod for applying the bigger debuff we have on hand, but having the following is handy when we don't have the mod available, but we do still want to apply a debuff of sorts. This is more of a personal pick, as it has been helpful to use in Endgame while expanding my current loadout, so I can see this not being a fan favourite for all, but I do highly recommend you give it a try either way. For aspects and fragments, we have the following. Arc Soul, where using your Rift will generate an Arc Soul that fires our targets. Electric Stat of Mind, where defeating a target with arc abilities or jolted targets creates ion traces. Collecting traces makes you amplified. A Spark of Shock, where your arc grenades jolt targets. Spark of Discharge, where arc weapon finder blows have a chance to create ion traces. Spark of Ions, where defeating a jolted target creates ion traces. And Spark of Brilliance, where defeating blinded targets with precision damage creates blinding explosion. While the fragments being used are the same old as always, the following is generally the perfect match for supporting ability regeneration and triggering non-stop jolts when equipped. As we will be using jolts like crazy, having the Spark of Ions and Shock are 2 fragments we should always have on hand. One thing I do recommend you folks to give a try on is to give Brilliance a shout with Retinal Burn seasonal mod, as triggering Retinal Burn is pretty easy with the setup we have, and using Elemental Charge is key to this process. Adding Brilliance will allow us to chain our blinding effects from one enemy to another with little cooldown. Now I have found that pairing this up with a weapon that can trigger jolts and also create ores of power is probably going to be your better choice to pick in this example, as this will provide us with further buffs towards Crown of Tempest usage. On top of that, the Arc Compounding mod will also be triggered from the blinding effects we apply to targets, as long as we have a charge with light active. Simply, although the kit is very straightforward, we're getting a lot of runtime with whatever arc weapon we are using. Not only are you getting fast ability energy from all of this, but you'll also be applying consistent and constant debuffs such as blind and jolt with minimal effort. Probably the best arc build to use this season as of now. For the mods and stats, we have the resilience and discipline marked with the highest priorities of the build. Recovery is also important, but we'll be relying on fragments and aspects to help us out. Resilience, we have ours at tier 10 for a 30% damage reduction. I've added the concussive dampener mod with additional splash damage applied to us. I would also advise adding the Spark of Resistance for the extra 25% damage reduction. However, our kit doesn't have any fragments worth removing unless you get rid of Brilliance. Now, this is kind of fine, but it means that you can't change your blinding effects very much, which is incredibly powerful to use in high endgame content, so choose wisely. A discipline, we have ours at tier 10 for a 1 minute 1 second cooldown via pulse grenades. Pulse grenades are great for this build when paired up with ions and shock since it will jolt targets, apply big damage over time, and most importantly, provide a wealth of ionic traces as we play. Considering our stats don't need much investment with Crown of Tempest conduction times buff at times 3, you can more or less have this at tier 10 or even have it tier 5, since our Fragment and Exotic will provide more than enough. This should give you more wiggle room over time and allow the new players to pick what you want. Now, here are some of the mods for the further cooldown along the way. Impact Induction times 1 for a 12% grenade buff, Momentum Transfer times 1 for a 12% melee buff, and Bolstering Detonation times 1 for a 12% class ability buff. No distribution mods this time, as I've added the Reaper mod instead. Additional mods, we do have the following: Harmonic Siphon for creating orbs of power via matching elemental weapons, Ashes to assets where getting grenade kills grants super energy, Heavy Ammo Finder, Reserves and Scavenging mods for a heavy weapon, a Charged Up for a +1 in armor charge, Arc Surge for a 10% arc weapon buff, Elemental Charge where picking up an elemental pickup will grant you armor charge, a Powerful Attraction for automatically collecting orbs of power when using your class ability, and Reaper where after using your class ability, again a kill will generate an orb of power. As we have covered our Exotic heavy weapon, I would then advise you to pick some super weapons for the build. What I recommend are all optional, so always keep this in mind. Our primary is the Noxious Vetiver with Attrition Orbs and Jolting Feedback. I've mentioned this before, but the following SMG and perk combo is ideal for a heavy arc focused build that many players will lean into. With Crown of Tempest and Jolting Feedback, the following will be able to fast track our ability recovery through the jolting effects alone, which then gets topped off with ionic traces, fragments, and seasonal mods applied. Attrition Orbs is handy, as on SMGs with high reload speed, you're guaranteed producing the orb of power every shot you make, which means you can keep your given surge mods up and going for as long as you like. You can even use this quite effectively against unstoppables, since jolting can stun them, and we can abuse this for as long as we like. A secondary, we have the Tanisha's Mastery sidearm with Chill Clip and Reverberation. The brand new sidearm is handy for its damage and ability to apply slow and freeze over a given amount of shots. After our build is pretty flexible, this has been valuable to use in GMs when dealing with the major and ultra enemies fairly quickly. Reverberation seems like a nice perk to have since it will increase our blast radius and possibly Chill Clip radius effects as well, although more testing needs to be done on my end just to clarify its usage overall. The comparison of Fallen Sunstar and Crown of Tempest is one that many players can hardly distinguish at times. While one offers increased ability regen via ionic traces alone, the other one requires just arc abilities and jolt final blows to kickstart its cycle from one area to another. The Crown of Tempest is basically the exotic you want if you're ever using Stormtrance and anything resulting in a heavy arc based effects being used. What makes this build more effective than my last one is how fast we can recover our abilities in literal seconds. A Sunstar requires us to double down on ionic traces we create if we ever want to speed up our ability usage, while depending on some maps, it can be iffy when collecting them. You also have a cooldown to deal with at times, so most of the time you'll have moments of missing out on those extra ability bonuses you deserve. A Crown on the other hand can work off pretty much anything arc based, with ionic traces being a simple bonus that heavily improves our performance even more. This alone not only overlooks what Sunstar provides, but also makes using our super more worthwhile, knowing that everything we do keeps us topped up. With gameplay shown, you can jolt tons of enemies at once, while getting your abilities and super energy back up and running in seconds. And if you play like my given loadout as provided, you can cover pretty much every angle and enemy type and champion you face against in endgame content. We are using everything in our kit to improve on multiple things at once, and the results are showing quite an impressive overall kit that you'll generally love as well. Only downside of the build is the lack of additional damage reduction, but outside of that, the build plays brilliantly, and is one of the more recommended builds to use with this given SMG and everything included. So there we have it. I hope you all enjoyed the build breakdown. If you have any thoughts on the content shared, then please leave a comment below, while if you enjoy the content and want more of these videos, then leave a like and a sub while you're here. A dim link for the build is located below in the pin section, and I do advise you to check out my playlist for more. It was great sharing today's video with you all, and I hope to see you again soon.